As per usual for the beginning of the month, it is time for another Artsnacks unboxing, so here's the November 2019 Artsnacks box. This one was actually one that I didn't have anything spoiled for me at all. For the past couple boxes, Artsnacks themselves have been teasing a couple of the products, at least one of the products within the boxes, and this one in particular, they didn't do anything of the sort, so everything within this box was a surprise to me at the time of me opening it, which is nice. The very first thing I ended up pulling out of the box was this Liquitex Professional Soft Body Acrylic. We've gotten one of these before, but I think it was an acrylic gouache, so I was interested to see how this kind of form of acrylic paint would work. And it's like a squeezy tube, and you can take it out of the bit. You can take it out of the bit, or you can squeeze it out. That's a good explanation. And then wrapped up in the tissue paper were a couple of more products. The thing that stood out to me was the Princeton Velvetouch brush. This is a flat shader in a size 6. These are actually the brushes that I use the most with watercolors, so I was really excited to get a flat brush because I did not actually have any. We also got a Faber-Castell Echo pigment pen. This just looks like to be a fine liner in like a tealish color. I couldn't find any color on the barrel, so that was odd. And then last but not least is a Zebra metallic brush pen. So right off the bat, this box, it definitely felt like it didn't come with a lot of stuff in it, even though this is generally the amount of products that come in Artsnacks boxes. The retail value says it's about $26 of supplies, but I know especially when it comes to the brush itself, you can get it on Blick for like half the price that its retail is, listed on the Artsnacks menu, which Blick is also kind of cheaper than most places anyways, but still, right off the bat, this box was not something that was super exciting just because the supplies that came in it aren't bad supplies, but I definitely wasn't really feeling it once I had already swatched the supplies. But in terms of swatching, I did actually really like using the acrylic paint it came with, the Liquitex Soft Body. It's definitely not a kind of paint tube you would expect necessarily, but it is really nice to work with. I do like the little squeezy tube, so you can use it either taking the paint straight from the little container it comes in, or you can squeeze out some, which is what I ended up doing. When I was swatching these also, it was really awesome because Aslan decided he wanted to jump on my desk, which is normal, and I was like, nah, normally he's really good when it comes to like wet media being on here, and I wasn't super worried about it, but then he decided it would be really fun to actually sit in the most wet spot of the paint, and he got it all over his back leg, and when I tried to pick him up, he hissed at me, and then he ran off the desk, and he had blue paint on his back leg, and I had to chase him around the house with like a wet paper towel, and it wasn't coming off, so I tried a makeup wipe on him, and then I tried a Burt's Bees like pet dander remover wipe to try and get it off, and it was an adventure. I did get most of it off. Water and paper towel kind of worked for me, but then I was sitting there Googling, oh, is acrylic paint toxic to cats? Because even though it was a small amount, I knew he'd be licking it off, and it was fun. It was a great time. So yeah, that went well. Then he got locked out of the room while I finished this. He's fine though. It's okay for cats to have a little bit of acrylic paint. It's not optimal, but like the small amount of fur that it got on wouldn't be bad. When I was looking up whether or not it's okay for cats to ingest acrylic paint, a lot of the people asking those questions on forums and stuff like that were people whose cats had eaten like a very large quantity of straight up paint versus licking paint off of their body. So at least my cat's not a monster who rips into tubes or like squeezy bottles of acrylic paint and eats it from there, because my god, it was my fault given, but it was still like, oh my god, because he's a monster. But anyways, I did go ahead and swatch everything out. I didn't really know what I wanted to do with these products at first, so I did do a little swatch in my sketchbook of them, and then I did a little doodle, and that little doodle ended up being what I actually decided to do for the finished painting, which is what you're seeing now. I kind of had a plan as to what I was doing, and I'm glad I ended up doing some small thumbnail of an image, which wasn't initially what I was going to do. Initially, I was just doing a thumbnail to kind of play with the supplies and figure out if I was going to do a character where I wanted to lay the supplies, but it ended up being a little thumbnail that I liked, so I decided to go ahead and use it for the finished piece. And at this point in time, I totally fell in love with using this flat brush. It's like so nice. I have a ton of the Princeton Velvetouch brushes, but I have them all in rounds. I have a couple of wash brushes, I think. I have a wash brush, and then I have some of the like angled brushes, but I don't have any flat shader brushes, and I've always wanted some. Brushes are expensive and I spend a lot of money on brushes before, so I haven't really like gone out of my way to do it, but it was so nice working with this brush. And since getting this Artsnacks box, I have used this brush so much for gouache and watercolor. It's just a very nice size. It's a very wonderful shape to work with, and I've really enjoyed this brush as a whole. So I really like it when Artsnacks sends me more of these brushes, because I really like the Princeton Velvet Touch brushes, or any of the Princeton like watercolor based brushes. And I think it's through Artsnacks that I actually ended up discovering these brushes, and then I went out on my own and decided to purchase more, but like, they're so nice. They're my favorite brushes. I also did squeeze in an Arteza liner brush, just because those are also really nice brushes for doing fine lines. So I think the only products that I like cheated, if you want to call it that, with this box were my own pencil, an Arteza liner brush, and then a white gel pen at the very end. In my original thumbnail too, I didn't add any blue into the skin, but I decided I wanted to do that in the final piece just to kind of add more blue into it. I was actually having a lot of fun playing with the soft body acrylic, which I was excited to see how I would like it, because it is just more of a non-traditional style of acrylic, at least in terms of the tube that it comes in itself. But I did really enjoy working with this paint, and I might actually pursue trying to buy a couple other tubes of this paint on my own, just because I found it really nice to work with. It diluted really well with water. I did decide to do like swatches and just turn my sketchbook page into a palette for both the metallic pen that this came with, which was water soluble, and the Liquitex soft body paint. So that's not optimal, especially with the ELO sketchbook, because it doesn't necessarily hold that kind of reworking over and over again on the page, but I didn't want to grab anything else, so that's what I ended up using as a palette, and it worked fairly fine. It didn't destroy the page, and that's all I could ask for. But I did actually really enjoy playing with the art supplies that came in this box. The Zebra metallic pen was definitely not what I was expecting it to be. It's a super opaque, very pretty color in the one I got, but it's really opaque, but it's nice because it's water soluble, so I was able to dilute it pretty much everywhere I put it. There were only a couple of instances when I used it at its full opacity, which is fine. I don't mind doing that. If anything, I get really excited when I get water-soluble products with Artsnacks now, because you can use them in a lot more ways than you would originally think you can, so I've had a lot of fun messing around with that. But as a whole, like I said, this box wasn't the most exciting one, just because it only came with a couple of items. One of those items was a brush, and like the Faber-Castell fine liner really wasn't anything exciting. It was a colored fine liner, which is not water soluble, so it stays on there, which is a nice thing, but like definitely not supplies that I particularly care for, aside from the brush that it came with, and then the Liquitex soft body paint I'll probably end up using again. But either way, it was a really fun box to play with, and I'm still glad I got it, even though it's not my favorite kind of supplies. I do like the illustration that ended up coming out of it. It's very not in a color palette I would choose on my own. I actually kind of struggled with this color palette because I felt like it was a very ugly color palette, but it definitely helped being able to dilute the metallic brush pen that came in this box, and the fine liner was just kind of the outlier. I don't really like the color of the fine liner combined with everything else. But thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.